Hi, follow you from Rojas calling DHV. Thanks for reminding me about Little Johnny. I think I probably heard that from a million times, and it still sort of comes back in memory the challenges we've had on one or two sites with that. I think just following on from the last discussion, red herrings is probably what I want to sort of pick on, and health and safety, irrespective of how you've designed it out nicely, this sort of risk aversion that people tend to have about health and safety. I just wonder, also the other speakers, are there any other annoying red herrings that you've sort of really come across, you know, and how have you dealt with them in terms of things that people try to focus the wrong attention on regarding SuDS?
How long have you got? I've been involved in SuDS for 12, 13 years, and the first book I lifted was the C523, the sort of slimline predecessor of C697. I thought it was very well laid out and explained it very well. And whenever I first started talking to counterparts, they said, well, we can't do SuDS because it's on clay. We can't do SuDS because health and safety. And it's all those common myths, and a lot of those are still out there. So, yeah, we come across them all the time, but, you know, in terms of what about pollution, we find that all the things we try to do right across this board, by doing one, if you do one, you do it properly. It's very compatible right across the spectrum. So in terms of me trying to hold that water back, I increase that treatment time. I use passive treatment, which helps Theo. It gets better biodiversity downstream. So there are answers for all the myths. The myths should no longer be there, but unfortunately they are. I'm sure you've probably have other examples.
Yeah, I would echo that. The two common problems that we come across are cost of maintenance, who's going to take responsibility, it's going to be expensive, and the pollution issue as well. If the system is designed...
Is it on?
Yeah. Is that better?
You are pointed
Any better now?
really close. I think if you get really close, get like that.
Really, really close?
No, maybe not.
Oh, thank you. Okay, that's better. Yeah, so two things. One is this myth that's perpetuated about the cost and complexity of maintenance and management, and I think we've all demonstrated that that's not necessarily the case. If you consider it and design a heavy maintenance burden out from the outset, it's not necessarily a problem. In the issue of dealing with pollutants, there are always solutions to these things, as Anthony says. I think in my experience, the client that you work with either wants to do SuDS or they don't. And I think if somebody comes to the table with that mindset that they're just not interested, nothing is going to persuade them otherwise. But if you've got a client who's willing to listen, there are always solutions. So,
I would say we shouldn't be polluting our rivers, and that's unacceptable, and it can become a battle of wills. So if we meet a highways engineer who thinks it's acceptable to pollute rivers, then they're clearly wrong. The law says that we shouldn't pollute rivers either, so that's on our side. And it's obviously nonsense that we would want to pollute the water that we ultimately draw our drinking water from. So I think that we've allowed, for a whole range of spurious reasons, rivers to be and water quality to drop so far down the agenda, almost in a kind of anti-evolutionary way, that it's time to fight for clean water. And without that, then yeah, people can get away with all sorts. Polluters will want to pollute. It externalises their costs, and they should be held to account for that. And SuDS is one way of making it clear that pollution is occurring, and that increasingly becomes unacceptable to the people that live nearby.
Let's go back to the health and safety one again. One thing we encourage the designers in our studio to do is not to do is draw SuDS features as blue unless they are going to be standing water. The temptation is to draw all the swales and basins as blue. And if the public or even a client gets sight of that, they just assume it's all water, it's all standing water. So we do them as green or even a greeny blue, which you know really conveys that most of the time, unless we choose otherwise, they are dry. So the perceived risk is only there temporarily.
Next question.
Thank you. Colin Brooking. Just noting from several aspects of the presentations that landform is of itself a significant factor in producing a diversity that one would not have a level playing field, but to actually perhaps make use of recycling material on site as a way of actually beginning to shape landform to a beneficial purpose.
I mean, regardless of SuDS design, that's something that we as landscape architects would often do anyway, you know, using excavated material rather than take it off site. It's unfavourable these days, ideally if we can keep it on site. So we may create raised features, especially in schools. They become great natural play features, or they help start defining sort of certain spaces within a wider landscape. So yeah, it's something that's commonly used anyway outside of SuDS, and SuDS just, like in so many ways, SuDS kind of piggybacks on those other sort of ideas of good quality landscape and just fits in so easily into those.
One thing that has become very apparent over the, I suppose whenever I came to do drainage design, SuDS design, I hadn't done that much drainage design, so I hadn't been brainwashed, but it's the method of collection of water. It's very difficult to use a landscape if you collect water in conventional manners, in that you're very quickly down 1.2, 1.5 metres, and that means you actually start to demand more land to facilitate the use of that water and on the surface. So it is always important to not forget the finer details, and the first port of call when we start that design process is actually how you collect that water and resist the put it into a pipe.
Next question.
Thank you. Jeff Way, independent consultant. I have a question I'd like to direct to Anthony and to Kevin. I get the impression that a lot of the projects that you're involved in, you're involved right through from the concept stage, right through detailed design and implementation. Do you have any examples where you've only been involved in the concept stage and then other consultants have taken forward detailed design and implementation? And if so, have the outcomes of that project been what you intended at the concept stage?
Have you got any in mind in particular? Yeah, completely. It's one of our biggest threats, really. We're very careful about what information we produce at concept stage, and we're very careful to make sure it's not buildable, because we've been stung a number of times by engineering firms who then say to the client, "We can do that. We'll take it from here." And we've given a little bit too much information, so enough for them to progress with, but invariably they make a hash of it. They miss the essential principles, how you're collecting water, keeping it at the surface. They start defaulting to standard head wall typologies with massive pipe sizes, just really not understanding the concept of the design, and it becomes incredibly expensive. It starts getting dangerous, the depth of storage. Yeah, it definitely happens. And I'd like to say we only ever get involved at concept stage, but actually that's not true either. Sometimes, sadly, despite promoting the benefits of getting involved very early on, sometimes we are delivered layouts which we have to then fit SuDS into as we can. It's not ideal, but it's another challenge which is enjoyable in its own way.
Yeah, I suppose I've had some similar experiences in terms of doing concepts to get things through planning and putting on paper what I feel is the how that site should be developed and how passage of water and how it should be stored around that site. And others may miss the point if, in terms of that development information, don't give all the information at outline stage because it's not the appropriate point in time. So it's probably 2 points to make. The first one is a well-used phrase by particularly engineers and surveyors. That's value engineering. And to me, coming through university a long time ago, value engineering was about finding methods where you could make better use, where you could apply a different methodology to make that site better. That was where you're adding value. I think over time that term has become more about extracting value to actually make it cheaper. Now I think it would be good for somebody to take that and champion it and put it out into the industry, because as both engineers and surveyors, I do find my friends in the QS quantity surveying, they don't fully get what we're actually trying to achieve. And if say they look at permanent pavement, for instance, they'll compare the cost of permanent pavement directly against the cost of standard pavement. And they won't consider the cost of the storage, they won't add in the cost of the gully pots and the pipes. And before that, the sites, there's a couple of good examples where I went to the site, I'd done the concept design, I landed on site, and it was completely different. There was no permanent pavement, that had been stripped out, in its place had gone blacktop with gully pots, pipes, and I know full well that would be a more expensive option. But on the drawing board where that surveyor had looked at that, his appreciation was not the same way.
Thank you.
Another question?
Just carrying on from that theme.
Could you say?
Sorry, it's Claire Foxford, I'm a landscape architect. Just carrying on from that theme, what are the ways the panel would think you can try to convince clients and or QSs or civil engineers you're working with to actually see the benefits of SuDS? Because I would often be working on a scheme, one recently, we had swales, we had permeable paving, and the QS did exactly what you did, cut it out for cost grounds. But at the end of the day, there's a massive grade attenuation tank that's underground, and it was incredibly disappointing from the client's point of view, but they couldn't actually see it because they saw it as money saving at the end of the day. And I don't know what the panel thinks about how you can convince clients and other team members.
I think be as blatantly clear on drawings, so it's not just about specification of drawings, explanatory drawings as to what the function is, and to, I mean, the whole storage element I discussed earlier on, I mean, all of that storage could have been in the pipe, could have been in a massive basin, which could have maybe knocked out another 20, 30 houses. Now, that space, I came upon that site in terms of just, I was looking for an additional site very close to it, and I came across the planning portal, but it completely lent itself, even with the layout that in that instance, that the actual designer had come up with the pipe system. He had reverse flowed, he was flowing into the hill rather than down the hill. So good explanatory drawings that are very clear, so anybody lifting those drawings or that design statement, and we generally produce a design statement, a short, concise, well-explained design statement to explain the principles, that they're left under no false impression of what the purpose of those things are.
Yeah.
One solution is to make sure that the purpose of the scheme is understood and embedded in that master plan from the outset, and in my experience that's probably the best way to make sure that it actually happens, so it's translated from master planning stage through to detailed design, and it's secured and implemented through planning condition, and in that way it can be enforceable It relies on the local planning authority, whether it's the ecologist or planning case officer, whoever, to support that approach and make sure that it is tied up in planning conditions, because as designers we can only do so much, and it's often falls to the planning authority to make sure that it is implemented in that way.
It doesn't help that there's an absence of politicians and policymakers who are advocates for sustainable drainage, and without that voice then the puzzle is incomplete. So it makes it very easy for developers to get away with the lowest possible. We know many people want to see these kind of improvements, and if politicians and policymakers don't follow that kind of democratic thrust through, then it's, we're left in a situation where we are at the moment, where we'll kind of veer from one consultation to another.
Nick Holman, Holman Young Landscape Design, just picking up on the points about policy and the like, and with the consultation ending tomorrow for the new SuDS standards and the like, I was just wondering what your opinions are of that, and do you think that's a push in the right direction, or do you think we need to take a step back and reconsider how we are approaching this in terms of not just dealing with water quantity, but also getting the added benefits of SuDS with amenity and biodiversity and water quality and things?
I'm glad we've got a volunteer to go first.
I'm afraid I'm a little bit cynical about all of this, and I'm not entirely convinced that the latest guidelines are going to really change things very much from the situation that we currently have, whereby we all understand and know the many multiple benefits of SuDS. There's a wealth of expertise out there now of schemes that we've heard about this afternoon that have been implemented and they work, and you can go and see them, demonstration sites and such like. So it's not as if we don't know how to do it. But I fear that the guidance probably isn't going to go far enough to require developers absolutely to follow the SuDS approach. It's one of a palette of options that's available, and if it's too costly or technically difficult, then I fear that it's going to be quite easy for the developer just to park SuDS and go down the traditional route. So I'm not feeling very positive about it.
And most of the housing stock is already built, so the retrofit debate is kind of not as active as it could be. So there's all the SuDS that we're creating, or see created, that the Borough of Enfield and others creating are retrofit. So that is going to make the difference in London. I mean, if a developer is building a housing estate or whatever, and those roads pollute rivers, then that developer is being negligent. And I would hope that they will be held to account. It's not to me, it's not a question of what's cheaper and what's more expensive. The bottom line is you don't add pollution or add flood risk to anybody living in any environment downstream of your development.
How much of a rant do you want to hear? Personally, my own personal opinion, it's for a consultation. Firstly, it's very unclear how to set out the questions to ask. For me, it's a real regression if it has put us back 3-4 years, because what I felt with the introduction of the SAB and body particularly devoted to the aspirations and the requirements of the sustainable drainage system, over time, most local authorities have been developing some sort of expertise. There have been lifted the gauntlet. I can name probably countless local authorities within the room that have had shadow SABs and have been promoting that with developers. I think the way they've gone with it in terms of saying, well, actually we feel it's better sitting with planners, is a real backward step. Now, whether it ends up in there or not, I can't really say. I also don't believe it'll be here by next spring. So, yeah, I could go on. I think that's pub talk.
It's a bit like having a baby. For some people, it's never the right time to have a baby, and so they don't, and they get to 40 and they haven't had any children. And it feels like it's never going to be easy, this transition to SuDS on this sort of scale. It's not going to be easy, it's not going to be smooth. I think it would have to be a period of review, learning from mistakes, tweaking it here and there. I just wish we had just dived into it, really, and accept that it's not going to be perfect. And we're not very good at that in Britain, just taking something and accepting that it's not going to be perfect, but we can learn on the way. We like to have everything set out and know it's absolutely going to work and everyone is going to be happy before we jump in. Yeah, it's very frustrating. It's been this long and we feel further than ever in some ways.
If I can use Chair's prerogative also to express a view, my view is now I think it's a bad idea. I can't see us taking us forward an inch or a centimetre. I think we risk ending up with either no SuDS or private SuDS that are not going to be adopted, and that takes us into the same sort of problem areas as private sewers and private roads. Are we intending that we're going to allow highways to go through the same sort of developer-led approach where they can decide whether they want to surface them or decide what width of road they're going to provide in developments? We do need standards and we need a clear adoption process. I thought we'd got past that debate really. It seemed to have been settled about 5 or 6 years ago now, and that there was a need for a clear process forward. That's been the review of the Scottish experience on SuDS, that they haven't delivered as many and as good SuDS as they intended because they haven't got a clear adoption process.
And you've still got 24 hours to respond as well to consultations, so if you haven't, do.
Yep, well, thank you for that reminder. Fowler indicated he wanted to answer the question now. So this is the last question, I think.
Okay, in that case, I'll probably first echo what's just last been said. Most people I've spoken to so far have not responded to the consultation, even though they responded the last time, because people tend to think they've made up their mind, they're not doing anything on this. Can I just, please respond, let the government know what you're thinking about this. The other one is actually a bit more like a plea as well. The last question about what people could do to make sure that SuDS actually gets delivered as it should be, and we talked about how well we should put the things on paper and make it very clear. I think that's the first step. My experience is that, and really a plea to clients and consultants in the bigger sense here, excluding the person who's gone through the thinking and the design of SuDS from the delivery is false economy. We've got contractors on site spending about 500 times how much someone will spend coming for a few days to make sure these things are done. Nearly every time where we've tried to hold up on that, we've always got into trouble. So if I can just a bit of a plea, it's a lot of contractors, they don't know what they don't know. This is quite new to them. The kind of tolerances we're talking about with SuDS is not what they used to. And please, as clients, it's false economy. Always make sure that the person with the thinking and with the ideas goes all the way through into construction. It's not going to cost you a lot, but you get the final finished product you need.
I think I'm going to take that not as a question, as a plea and a logical statement. Okay, I think if I can just sum up now the afternoon's event. I think we've had 4 excellent presentations today. I think we can go away feeling it's been an afternoon that's been worth moving away from the day jobs and the day pressures in other respects. Anthony succeeded in making numbers interesting. And prompted some interesting questions, including the old chestnut of the conundrum, really, of linear detention as opposed to a single point detention, as to why it doesn't seem to come up with the same answers. I'm not going to prompt that debate anymore, but it's interesting that keeps coming round. Theo is obviously a true champion for water quality and gave us an excellent presentation on the pioneering work in the capital and strong views that urban river restoration cannot proceed without SuDS. I think that was an underlying message that we should go away from today. Sacha made legislation framework engaging. Congratulate her for that. And ran this seamlessly into the practical dimensions of concepts, design, implementation, and management. I have a last tongue-in-cheek question here for Sacha as to whether red herrings are a protected species. Kevin then gave us an inspirational presentation with some excellent examples, lots of excellent examples of good design, all in well-used urban areas. And I think the more of that we can see and present to the key stakeholders, the better, as I see it. And I really like the principle of making SuDS interesting and exciting and giving architectural value to it. It's the essence of placemaking. One can have quite simple, practical SuDS that are attractive, got excellent biodiversity and offer amenity. And there's a place for those, but it's also good in urban areas to see some real integrated architectural, inspiring designs coming forward as well. In that sense, I've said what I wanted to say. I'd like to thank you all for coming. I hope you can go away with your batteries recharged. I wish you a safe journey home, and please respond to the questionnaires for today. Thank you. I'd like to